Okay, I'll call to order the joint meeting of the Stokes County Board of Commissioners and the Stokes County Board of Education for Thursday, November 2nd, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. And I'll also ask Ron to call his board to order.
We'll call the joint meeting for the Board of Education and the County Commissioners to order.
Okay, the first item on our agenda is the invocation, and we're going to ask Justin if he would deliver that for us.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight. We thank you for this day of life that you bless us with. We thank you for the opportunity we have, Lord, just to serve Lord, this county. I pray that you'll just be with everything that goes on tonight. I pray you'll just give us clarity, give us direction, Lord, give us vision. And Lord, I pray through all this, Lord, you'll be exalted. I pray that our kids will be, Lord, just better educated. Father, I pray that you'll just continue to bless our county. Lord, we pray for this nation. We pray for the Israel. Lord, we ask that you'll just continue to move in hearts. Lord, we sure love you and thank you for loving us. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, our next item, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is we'll ask the two boards to approve our agenda. I would note that before the meeting actually opened, we polled the audience to see if anybody would like to make any public comments, and nobody seemed interested in doing that, but we were going to amend the agenda.
To make a comment.
No, actually you're not. So
I'll make a motion we amend the agenda to add public comment.
Second. All in favor on the commissioner, say aye. Aye.
Do you want to go in and approve your agenda?
Yeah,
You just approve it, or just?
Yeah, we just did.
Okay.
Yeah.
With that change, with her change.
Okay.
Public comment.
So we have an amendment to the agenda for the Board of Education to allow public comments. Do I have a motion to amend the agenda?
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it, or whoever.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And we need a motion to approve our agenda.
Motion to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we've approved an amended agenda that allows for public comments, and for anyone would like to do that, why don't you just come up and stand right beside of Lisa there so the mic will pick you up.
Okay, and I'm sorry, because I had no intention of doing this, but my name is Cameron Ragachis. I live in Stokes County. Really, I'm just interested, and I'm sure there's stuff I don't understand, but what it seems to me like, if we've got an opportunity to give $2 million and get $38 million, why would we not do that? Even if no matter which school it goes towards, that's just $38 million or however much, $36 million, that we don't have to spend later down the road. It just makes zero sense to me, but I'm sure there's maybe some stuff I don't understand. So that was my comment. I started to have a sign that said like 2 equals 38.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Okay.
I think it will help everybody.
Okay, thank you very much. Since we have an amended agenda, does anyone else have second thoughts who would like to come up and comment? All righty. So the next thing on our agenda is opening comments from the Board of Education, and we'll go around and let all the board members make a brief comment or two before we get to our full discussion. I'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd just like to thank the Board of Commissioners for meeting with us tonight and inviting us up and helping us discuss our long-range planning. It's something that we've been discussing in our board for, I told them a while ago, it seems like years now, but for several months, and a lot of time in our meetings we've discussed it. We feel like we've pretty much come to a consensus on our Board of Education, and we'll be happy here tonight to discuss a little bit of our plan. and then answer any questions that the commissioners have. So thank you all again for having us over. Ms. Knight,
Yes,
you have an opening comment?
brief as far as, thank you all for participating with us. What might seem like a cut and dry issue has turned out to be very, very, complex with lots of ripple effects from, changes within the school system. It's been a very, I think the board would agree, very difficult, trying, stressful, right? Probably one of the toughest things I know that I've had to take on as far as consolidation is almost a bad word, right? It's tough. But, I know this is a historically situation that's kind of been we've seen over 25 years or more, and now we're kind of trying to address it the best we can, and we still have a lot of work to do, so that's why we're here to talk to you all. Thank you.
Mr. Bryant?
Yes, I'd like to say thank y'all for meeting with us and everything. I know we've worked back and forth trying to work out a meeting for a month or so, but we finally got it done, and I know how trying it is for everybody. It's not been easy, but we got 5,500 kids that we've got to think about. And I'm trying to do what's best for all of them, and we just hope that we can all reach a consensus that helps them all. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Duncan?
Well, I'd like to thank you all for letting us come and present. And my desire is that we can work together as two boards. This is a county problem that we've inherited, and let's work together to come to an agreement and continue to do what we've always done, and that's living the best county in the nation, in my opinion. But again, thank you for taking the time, and like I said, I hope that we can actually get some things done tonight and just look toward the future with a vision.
Mr. Rogers?
I'll keep mine short this week because they've all said it. Thank y'all for hosting us. It's good that we can all come together. We didn't get into this problem overnight. We're not going to get out of this problem overnight. We're trying to fix the short-term issues while still having a long-term vision. Now, what that vision is going to be, I don't know, because this county looks 180 degrees different than it did when Ms. Cox and I started serving in 2010. So it changes quickly. We just have to adapt for it, and we're all in this together. So thanks for having us.
Okay.
You already did yours, didn't you? Okay, now the commissioners will make some opening comments. We'll start Commissioner Mendenhall.
Well, I'll make mine short here in the beginning because I hope that we'll be able to go back around a second time, Mr. Chairman. Is that correct?
Okay. Or more.
I want to welcome all the Board of Education members here. It's good to see you. I hope everybody here had a good ride to scenic Danbury, North Carolina with the leaves turning. And appreciate you coming out on a night when you didn't have to, but you made that extra effort to come here to listen about the school and Board of Education's proposals and some of the county commissioners' ideas, and you didn't have to come out. I mean, you could be at home right now. I know my wife's sitting at home watching TV with a drink in her hand. That's soft drink now. And so just to say welcome, and we'll work our way back around a second time, and that's when I'll dig into a few questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Challoner.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, especially the ones that come in person, and I know the ones that are on YouTube and streaming. We appreciate your participation. Thank you to the school board. It's good seeing you all again. We got a lot on our plate, I think, tonight, but and I'll get into more a little bit later, but just a couple quick things that sometimes there seems to be a misimpression or misinterpretation, I think, on a lot of different sides or different parts of the county, but I'll just make it clear that I represent Stokes County. I live in the north, side of the county, but I represent Stokes County. And King's in Stokes County last time I checked. And I represent King. And for people to infer just because I live in the northern part of the county, they don't know me, they're wrong. So I just want to get that kind of out there that it doesn't, if I was a real politician, by someone doing that, I might do something in spite. Go the other way, other than looking at all, all the different facts. But we'll be able to clear a lot of this stuff up later on in the night. Thank you.
Mr. Wood.
I'd like to welcome everybody, especially the school board. It's nice to show that we're not at each other's throat, that we like each other. It's not your problem we got, it's not my problem, but we gotta solve it. It started a long time ago, and now we know why nobody jumped on it. It's not gonna be easy, and everybody's not gonna be happy. So, but everybody better get along, because that's what we do in Stokes County. That's all I got.
Commissioner Cox.
Yeah, thank you all for being here, and thank you all for watching at home, and those who couldn't be here, and just taking an interest in what is going on in our county and with the schools here, and appreciate the Board of Education coming up here and doing this joint meeting. So maybe we can iron out a few misconceptions, as Brad said, that are out there about different things. One he mentioned, and there's lots of others that are out there that we need to iron out, because I think what got us here in the first place, if I remember correctly, was the perception that our Board of Commissioners had some blame of, and I'll just talk about the elephant in the room, of why consolidation was going to have to happen. And I don't think that was the intent of the Board of Education or any board members in particular. I think people heard what they wanted to hear and don't always understand the funding and how it works with schools and the Board of Education's role and the Board of Commissioners' role and how that all works. So, that had some people talking about how we were to blame, and I'm talking about community members, not the Board of Education, but it just got all misconstrued and turned upside down, and I think just wanted to sort of have an opportunity to clear the air about how we felt about consolidation and the funding and how it all works, and maybe simplify it so people can understand it a little better, and what is our role. I know when I was on the Board of Education, maybe even before Mike came on there, we did a master boardsmanship class, and we really dug deep into the role of the school board member, and some of that has stuck with me and even served me well as Board of Ed Commissioner member, because their roles are so different, and sometimes it's easy to cross the lanes and not stay in our lane like we should. And the last thing that I would like to see is this Board of Commissioners try to micromanage the Board of Education to a degree that things are done as they've been done in the past, and the decisions were made that weren't always the best decisions for building schools and adding on to schools and where to put schools. And so that's kind of have led us to where we are today, talking about things that were done in the past that we're trying to make up for now, or try to kick the can down the road in the past when, it was easier to appease people and try to do that than to do the right thing sometimes. But that kind of needs to stop, and we just need to do the right thing. So that's my 2 cents for now.
I would like to welcome everybody. For those that are watching online, we have a full room here tonight with most all the seats taken, and that's good. We welcome participation from the public and comments like we just heard. Help us make decisions. I think probably Board of Education and welcome you guys to be here. It's good to meet with you and kind of air out where we're at on all these issues sort of associated with consolidation. I think each one of us as elected officials, probably one of the most important things that we're expected to do are be good stewards of the tax dollars that we are given to spend for the various services that are provided in the county. And so when you have a charter to do that and that's your top priority, then you're not going to always agree with people on things. And might be a lot of times where we have to agree to disagree. But like Keith said, we're all friends here, and none of this is personal, but it's, I think we all probably feel very strongly about how we do our job and how we handle taxpayer funding. So I look forward to getting into the discussion on the plan that you guys are working on, and then we'll share some thoughts from the commissioner's side. I think the next item on our agenda is the joint board discussion, and I talked to Vaughn, and I think we're going to start that with Dr. Rice giving us a short update of what the current plan is, and then the commissioners will make some comments after that about where they stand and questions they may have, and then we'll just basically let's have kind of an open discussion between the board and answer questions and so forth. And then once we do that, we can adjourn. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Rice for a couple of comments on the current plan.
Well, several of y'all mentioned many of the things that I was going to mention. I'll just kind of get back into it with a little detail. This has been a long process for the Board of Education that we started in 2021 with an enrollment study that looked at past enrollment as well as future projections. Then you commissioned the facility study that took place in the 22-23 school year. And I don't believe any of us were shocked by the results of that. We know that we have older facilities. Then we did 2 efficiency studies. The Masonboro group came in and did 1 study. And then ORED out of NC State came in and did another study. Since then, our Board of Education has been discussing different options, potential options, held public hearings, and going through that. The 3 issues that our Board of Education has tried to address in this process is, one, is overall and declining enrollment in our schools. The divided services that we have, especially in our elementary schools, due to small schools. So like the art, music, PE teachers. There's not enough students in a school to serve just one school, so they're divided out. Counselors are divided out. Nurses are divided out, which is great if you get sick on a day that a nurse is there, but what about the 4 days a week one's not there? So there are divided services with smaller ADM. And then the maintaining of 19 school facilities. As Ms. Cox said, there's the special tax rate that goes into funding facilities. And so that's something statutorily that happens. But the taxes have, while they have increased through the years, not really at the rate of inflation. And so trying to maintain 19 facilities with the tax dollars that come in off of sales tax, it's a losing battle. As you know, the results of the facility studies, it started off, we have 6 schools that were at least partially built in the 50s. We have some, I call them Franken schools, where you have a piece that was built this year and some that were built other years. So you have new parts and old parts, but at least part of the existing structure, 6 of them were built in the 50s, which is the most of any decade. The 60s we had 2, the 70s we had 3, the 90s there were 4, 2000s there was 1, and in 2010, 2011 and 2012, in the 2010s we had 2 schools built and none since then. And so with that, the facility studies came back that it would be between $50 and $90 million to renovate all of those schools. So with that and all of those things combined, our Board of Education decided that to discuss closing 3 schools, Pine Hall, Pinnacle, and Lawsonville. And that being a first step in this process. While that discussion was going on, the discussion came up with using all of that information to apply for a grant to rebuild King Elementary School that would hold many of the students from Pinnacle, which we discussed closing. So that was a concurrent conversation that went on with Consolidation, not necessarily tied together, but certainly can be tied together. As I spoke to y'all last week, I believe it was, part of the grant criteria that gives you a higher grant rating, if you will, is if Consolidation is part of it. So if the board does vote to close Pinnacle, that would strengthen that grant application. If they vote not to, we will still apply for the grant, and we still believe we have a strong case for it, but it would strengthen. So those are concurrent conversations, concurrent decisions that do go together, but also don't go together. Then the next phase we would look at after the debt comes off in about 7 years. When some of those debts comes off, at the way that things go these days, we know that there may be commissioner turnover, there may be Board of Education turnover, there may be superintendent turnover. So our board didn't look to make hard plans in cement for 7 years or 11 years down the road. Again, as Mr. Rogers said, the last 10 years haven't been the same for Stokes County as they were the previous 10 years. And so while there's some thoughts about that, the thought was to take this as an initial step and then make an additional step later. And that's my opening comments. I don't want to stand in front of adjournment too long.
Okay, good. So, so the commissioners, we'll go ahead and get started and get the ball rolling here, and I'll start with our two previous school people that are on the board. Start with Commissioner Cox.
Okay. Back up to see what notes, what things that I might want to that jump out at me here. So after seeing the application for this this school, the grant to rebuild King Elementary, I think it's pretty obvious that you were doing everything you could to maximize your chances of getting this grant. And there's no reason to even apply to do a grant for a school that you don't think you can get it for. So obviously this does make the most sense to try to do to get the grant funding, because $38 million handed to you for $2 million is, I have to agree with Mr. Gosh, that's pretty substantial. On my whole time on the board, I don't know that we got any money to ever build any school. So that being said, that's pretty substantial to be able to get a grant like that. And I do remember from the facility study that King Elementary was recommended to be replaced first because of the security issues, the safety of students being in a spread out campus, the floodplain, numerous things. And I have asked some questions of board members and Dr. Rice in between their other meeting and this meeting today about the feasibility of putting this school at Pinnacle versus King, because I'm not married to the idea that it has to be King. It's but they brought up an interesting point that I hadn't thought about, that the water and sewer is not extended to Pinnacle. So that is a problem when it comes to replacing school buildings or building schools, is that having that city water and sewer makes a big difference. So I hadn't thought about that, but and I know when I was still on the Board of Education, we talked about relocating it between King and Pinnacle, which I think that's been looked at, and trying to find a more central location, so that if you built a school and you combine schools, then it's a new school for everybody. So that kind of gives everybody on the same level playing field coming in. The outsiders, so to speak, don't feel like, hey, I'm coming into this new school. And I like that idea, but I also know the 20 acres in between King and Pinnacle is going to cost you a lot of money, and I don't know. I haven't seen any land. I rode around when we used to talk about it. When I was on the board, we talked about it, and we couldn't find land then, and I'm sure there's no new land now. So I would have liked that idea if that was feasible, but I don't think that is. But I feel like that let's see, that y'all have, I know y'all have done your due diligence with trying to find out the best location. And I know some things have been mentioned about the congestion and the traffic in the King area and a new school there and what that would mean. And I feel like, the city of King has that to look into. That's their issue that they need to figure out a way to resolve if it's a problem. It's twice a day for about 45 minutes a day, so it's not like it's an all-day issue. But I know the King PD has been really good to help y'all with traffic situations, so that's good. So personally, I'm in favor of applying for this grant to replace King Elementary. I can't think of any reason not to do it, to try to get it. We may get it, we may not. I think it's safe to say that if we don't, we won't be building the school. So, but I do think we have to plan and strategically plan as two boards. What are we going to do? What if we don't get this grant? We still need to build a couple of elementary schools and consolidate some schools just because these buildings are so old. But at the same time, how's that look? How do you do that without interrupting the lives of, 400 kids versus 100 kids? There's so, and I know y'all thought of all that, and that's your job. That's not our job. That's why I said that in the beginning. I don't want it to come across as being that we're micromanaging, but at the same time, it's like Commissioner Morris said, we are stewards of the public trust and the purse, and we do have to be mindful of that. And that being said, trying to get 38 million free, nearly free for 2 million is a good investment in my book. But I'll reserve any other comments for later. I got to go back through my notes.
Okay. We can do more than one round.
Okay.
Hey, Commissioner Mendenhall, you ready to?
Sure.
speak?
I think everybody here knows my love for education, my love for children. 36 years in the business, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And used to come up here with the Board of Education, or the DOC came. I retired in January 2016, and I didn't know how good retirement was. Retired in January, and in June I was in London, England, and Paris, France. What's got back into my head up here now? However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask y'all a few questions. That's okay. And but I want to give the audience, I think, part of our due diligence. At least it is for me. I had a time, I was only out retiring in January 2016 from education all my life, and then I ran in November of 2016 and was elected. And that's a quick turn of where you're in education and when you're a county commissioner, because as Commissioner Cox said, there's a lot of differences. Part of our difference is, as she said, is being good stewards of our money. The county taxpayers expect us to try to handle their money in a wise way. And I think the Board of Education understands that. I don't think you can go up to hardly any taxpayer and they would say, hey, y'all just spend the money the way you want to. We don't care. They care about how their tax dollars are spent. So I'm going to go over just a few facts, and then I'm going to ask a couple questions, and then I'll pass it down. Just for all the people in the audience and everybody watching, the county's total debt for schools right now is $22,641,798.76. That is what the county owes for the following schools I'm going to name. Community college, most of you call it Forsyth Tech, early college, whatever. Poplar Springs, the addition to Southeastern Stokes Middle School, the addition to Lawsonville Elementary School, and a lot of these things came about through refinancing, and also Nancy Reynolds Elementary School. I didn't want to leave out Nancy Reynolds. So through Nancy Reynolds, Community College, Poplar Springs, addition at Southeastern Middle School, addition at Lawsonville Elementary School, and I added Nancy Reynolds. I'll say it one more time. Right now, our debt on those facilities, and if we had to purchase land for some of those schools, but most of them we didn't. Like Lawsonville was there, we just did an addition, but it was $22 million. We currently owe, right at this moment, $22,641,798.76. Just wanted to get that out front. And it goes by, we make payments on that every year. This year, our payments for those facilities that I just gave to y'all, this year, we owe $2,885,289.99 this year. That will be our payments on those facilities for this year. $2,885,289.99. So I wanted everybody in the room and everybody watching to know the figures, and I got these figures from our finance person, Ms. Langford, and our county manager, Ms. Brown. Are those correct numbers, Ms. Langford?
That's correct.
Thank you. Y'all have a tough job, and I'm going to maybe do one or two more things, Mr. Chairman. I'll pass it down. Is that okay? We're in a situation here, and everybody knows, hey, my 5 years is almost 5 years as superintendent. My anniversary came in January, so that's when I retired. We went through a school closing. Didn't we, Ms. Cox?
Sure did.
Okay.
I was off the bus by then.
Did you notice I didn't bring your name up, Mr. Rogers?
Yeah, but you kept looking, so I want everybody to know.
But, you know, consolidation and closing is never easy. And if you believe in your heart that you're not going to make anyone upset, you're going about it the wrong direction. You can't do that. And y'all know that. Y'all know that. Because y'all been working through this now for quite a while. However, I will say this. I looked at the website tonight before I left, and I think your enrollment on your website showed 5,519 students. You double check me if you want to, but I'm pretty sure.
It's ballpark it, yeah.
Well, what I've done to let everybody know that the belief for consolidation, which our Board of Education has been dealing with, and Chairman Robertson, we appreciate y'all's work on that. Y'all have done a lot of work. But I've done a comparison study of 6 counties around us and how many schools they have and how many students they have versus how many schools we have and how many students we have. So, don't mind. Pass these down, Brad.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anybody in the audience want one? Pass it on. If we don't have quite enough, Amber can make some more copies. What this does basically is I want to make a brief statement and then let you understand why I did this. I retired January 31st, 2016 as superintendent. January 31st, 2016. Dr. Hobbs came in and filled out for the rest of that year. And Dr. Rice has been here with us since. In May of that year, after I retired, I got a call from Dr. Cotton in Henry County, Virginia. And he was a superintendent there. And he was in a situation where he had 14 schools, and 13 of them had met growth, and one had not. And he needed that school to get to growth. So he called and asked me to come up and talk to him, and asked me if I would come in and do an interim principalship for that school that did not meet growth. And he and I talked, and I accepted that responsibility. And during our conversation, I asked him how many schools they had and how many students they had. And so that perked me up, and I talked to Todd, Martin, and several other people. I used to see Travis Reeves. Travis and I made some trips together when we had our consortium at UNCG. But as you see on this comparative study, Surrey County has 20 schools and approximately 7,000 students. And I had Miss Brown, our county manager, call each school's central office and get these numbers. Yadkin County has 14 schools, 5,009 students. Rockingham County has 23 schools, approximately 11,000 students. Caswell, 6 schools, 2,173. Patrick County, 7 schools, 2,350. Henry County has 13 schools, 6,961. And Stokes, 19 schools, and approximately 5,500. To be exact, I think it's 5,519, but I think it's 19 students also, but we had to get some approximations from some of these counties. Now, when you take the number of schools and divide it by the number of students divided by number of schools, Surrey County averages, if you divide that 7,000 by 20, you're going to come out with an average of 350 students per school. Yadkin County is 357 per school. Rockingham County is 478 per school. Caswell's 362 per school. Patrick's 357 per school. Henry County is 535 per school. And Stokes County is 290 per school. I just want the people in the audience to understand why the Board of Education is working so hard on consolidation. 290 per school for Stokes County. You didn't hear any other of these 6 schools that surround us below 350, and that was Surrey County. And the reason I put Henry and Patrick is real simple. If you know Stokes County and surrounding area like I do, drive past Sandy Ridge Elementary School about 1.5 miles. And what county do you run into, Dwayne?
Henry.
Thank you. Henry County, Virginia. I worked there as an interim principal at Samville Elementary School. You know, you drive by Sandy Ridge about 1.5 miles, take a left, takes you right into Henry County. Lawsonville, go past Lawsonville, past the church, about 1 mile. What county are you in?
Patrick.
Patrick County. So I added those 2 counties to that, and then surrounding counties here. I just wanted everybody to see that we have more schools with less students than the other schools that I put down here. Just wanted that out there for facts. So, with the information I've given you on finance, what we owe currently, the 22 million plus, and you know, we even got a deal when we did Poplar Springs and Southeastern. My board member Rogers and Commissioner Cox were both on the board, and I was superintendent. But we got our money through a model called QZAB and QSCAB, which gave us a better deal. And I guess I'll finish up here just by saying I've listened to y'all's last 6 board meetings. Do you have a plan currently? Do you have a plan for the consolidation of schools? And that's one question y'all be thinking about. Do you have a finalized plan that you would make public to everybody in the county? That's one question, Dr. Rice and Chairman Robertson. Do you have a plan for the consolidation of schools? If you do, will you make it public? Second, did a new roof get put on King Elementary recently? When was the last roof put on?
You know what the last roof was? I can look that up for you.
One way we can do this is after each of the commissioners make comments, then we'll turn it over to you guys to
That's fine.
address the questions, and then that way give you a little time to
Yeah,
think
and
about
I don't
it.
have one more question.
Okay, that'll give you some time to think about them before we
I
get
told you I was
Okay.
finishing up.
Okay.
And Richie, didn't mean to put you on the spot.
2007.
Okay. I've been in that school many times. As superintendent, went to see teachers over there, went to see the principals, custodians. I tried to meet with everybody. I was in King Elementary, and I'll tell you what, I drove through it yesterday. Drove right through the middle of King Elementary, turned there at First Baptist Church, went all around the school, come back out on the back side, up by the playground, come on out to the main street. I just wanted to refresh my memory. Even though I've been there many times in my life, I wanted to go back and see it one more time before the meeting night. King Elementary, Sandy Ridge, they're old schools. Hey, I was principal at Sandy Ridge Elementary for 3.5 years. I know how old that school is. So, and I guess my question is, if the county commissioners agreed to give you the $2 million for the grant, and you don't get the grant, if, and this is sort of hypothetical, so you may not be able to answer it at this moment.
Well, the 2 million is not due unless we do get the grant. So
So,
if the grant doesn't come through, then there's no $2 million
at all,
at all.
won't have to put it up front.
No.
Okay. My other question was, but what will you do with King Elementary if you don't get the grant to build a new King Elementary? 'Cause y'all be thinking about that. I'm through for right now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Thank you. I guess I want to start and say, I mean, education is vital, it's paramount, I think, for any city, community, any county. You got to have a good education system. That's what not only sustains the quality of life and community involvement, but it also advances it. Because if you don't succeed in the level of opportunity for our students, our future leaders, then eventually it'll show with the leadership in the county, and when we will all fail. Well, it'll be a failure. We all know we got to consolidate schools. Been talking about it for years and years and years, long before I ever even thought about running for the Board of Commissioners. At some point in time, you have to sit down and you have to plan. And I thought we kind of did. You know, the Board of Education did their internal planning, going back and forth, and then we put up money for the Mason Borough report, and then you had the other report that was also recently done, with a facilities report that was done. And the level of need to our infrastructure here in Stokes County is shocking. Shocking. And I don't want to blame anybody, because it doesn't do any good, because we have the problem now, and we have to solve the problem. And I'm ready to solve the problem, at least help solve the problem. But I don't even blame the past boards. I mean, I don't, because they all just went on what the citizens want. That was low taxes. Because you know what? If the citizens weren't happy with the quality of life that was going on, they wouldn't keep voting them back in. But everybody keeps getting voted back in. So apparently it's not their fault. I mean, it's not like they ran on they were going to change things and didn't change things. Well, I ran on changing things. And I'm just one vote, but I'm also one mouth. And I'm going to do whatever I can to change things, help lead change in Stokes County, so we can get caught up in the 21st century, not just in the frustrating thing is we just don't look after the local part of the school fund-wise. We got a whole county to run. Our public safety is they do a great job with what they have, but let me tell you something, I come from law enforcement. They're 40 years behind. 40 years behind. And you know what struck me yesterday? Because I was on the school board, the school system website. What are we, 6 miles from 5 miles, 4 miles from y'all's office for the Dr. Rice's, the super, something like that? The difference between our computer system and our computer network and capabilities and your all's computer network capabilities, again, is shocking. It's like we're back in the 1979s and you're actually current in the 21st century with your capabilities. But yet, we send half, which is dedicated right off the top of what we bring in on the property taxes straight down the road. DSS is overwhelmed. Our Department of Health is overwhelmed. And so if we just had to sit here and just say automatically, here, take the money, because we got a lot of money, just do it. But we don't. I mean, we represent the whole county. And I want to get the school situation right. And I'll say right up front, I don't mind finding the $2 million to give you all. But I want to know where you're going to put the school. And I do. I mean, you've said where you want to put it. I don't know enough. What I see is there is traffic congestion, but like Sonia says, it's probably just maybe 2 hours a day, hour and a half a day. But that's King, and maybe King can work it out. But here's, and forgive me if I don't sound confident, because when you lack strategic planning, and I'm not just talking, I'm talking about us first. This county has never done strategic planning. We're going to. We're going to start. But I like to see plans. That's where I come from, doing operational plans and law enforcement and my budgeting role and stuff. I look at projections. I may be in the year 2023, but I'm already looking in the year 2026. Revenue and known expenses, what I have, and then what do we want to do? What do we want to accomplish in that situation? So I understand what you all say, that that we may not be here in 5 years, and y'all may not be here in 5 years. But you know what? That's no excuse, in my opinion. You still make plans. Then it's up to the other people that come on the board to either run with it or run against it. But then they're held accountable. But you know what? The way I think, and I know I'm a little bit different, but the way I think is, I'm just going to do the right thing, and if they want to vote me off, or if I don't want to run again, and somebody takes my seat and said that guy was crazy, we're going back to 1988 again, then that's fine. That's fine. That's them. And that's the citizens that they're either going to vote him in or vote him out. That's the way I look at it, and it's the only way to operate an organization, in my opinion. It's leadership. We're not all going to get everything that we want, but if we plan and if we articulate, I think, to the people that we represent, we're not going to please everybody. But I think when we're leading a certain way, then I can sit back and hold my head high and say, this is what our intent was. So, real quick, and then I'm going to move on. I got other things to say, but just something to think about or to answer is, one question I have is, what is your ideal student population number for elementary schools? I'd like to know that, what we're shooting for. And then the same thing for the high schools. And then, what if, like what Commissioner Mendenhall talked about, we don't get the grant, and then what are you going to do about King Elementary? But I want to take it just kind of a step further in that, I really did. I appreciated Bond invite me and Dr. Rice invite me and taking a tour of King Elementary about 3 weeks ago. I think about that about almost every day, where I, in my mind, I might be on my tractor, but I'm thinking about what's going on in Stokes County, and it sticks in my head. That school should not be in operation. My opinion. I'm not on the Board of Education, but it's my opinion that school needs to be closed. And when you talk about planning and talk about people being on the board, not on the board, didn't we, when we built or y'all at the time, built Pinnacle, or not Pinnacle, but Popular Springs. I mean, didn't you build it so you could add on to it? So, well, I mean, I don't hear nothing. I mean, did you all think about that in your plans that somehow or other we could do something with Popular Springs, adding on to it, or there was even extra property? I think that front property that's on 66. I think that's that.
There's
Don't we own
enough
that?
property there to build a middle school. There's enough property there to add on. The problem is we don't have the money as a county to do it. And there's not a grant out there to just add on to one elementary school.
Why can't you add another elementary school there?
Well, then you come into a bigger traffic congestion because you have Poplar Springs currently has 500 students there with one road in and out onto a 2-lane road. And that's not in King.
Well, the sheriff's office is there. I see them all the time directing traffic.
For 500 students. Now, if you put King in there, you've just doubled that school. So now you're putting more students than is at West Oaks in there.
And that would be more than the core capacity was built for.
And that, well, he's saying if we built another school on that property, a second elementary school. So now you're trying to put 1,000 students through the traffic jam.
Keith said that.
Right.
I was going another way, but
Sorry.
but
You're saying
but
add
that's
on,
fine.
when we originally designed it, we designed it to hold up to 700 students.
Right.
That's the core capacity. It's at 500 now. There's 440 some in King. It's not big enough.
It's my understanding there are grants for additions or to add on, correct? That is part of it. This has come up before. So,
There's new
Any
construction,
construction.
there are some renovations on, we got the $5 million in roofs out of this grant as well, but primarily the goal of this is for new constructions.
So
we'd have to add on to 2 elementary schools. We'd have to get 2 grants to add on to 2 elementary schools, which comes out to the same cost as 1 elementary school total.
You were asking about the size of the school, I think.
Right.
It's my understanding, Dr. Rice may correct me, I think the state average is about 450 for elementary schools. I think the sweet spot for elementary schools is somewhere close to 400. I think if you get, if we added on to Poplar Springs and took it to core capacity and had 700 to 800 students, then we have an elementary principal here. And I think Dr. Rice and Mr. Mendenhall, maybe even the same, would 800 elementary school would be hard to manage. I think that's what you run into, is when you're trying to get too many in an elementary school, it's just too hard to manage. At 400, around 400 is a sweet spot.
Especially when you think about, while the core capacity is what it is, when you start thinking about if there are 40 classrooms in a school for an 800 student school, on average 20 students per classroom, that many would have to go to specialty classes, art, music, and PE. So you couldn't get all of those in a week. So you would need, also in addition to those classes, you'd need 2 art classes, 2 music classes, 2 gyms to have the PE. So when you start getting into those size schools, you start getting it like West Oaks has an auxiliary gym to hold the PE classes. So you start basically having to double the school once you get into that size. The 300 to 500 range, yes, is the ideal elementary school. That 400 is a sweet spot. High schools would be 600 to 1,000 to offer the things that you would want to offer and have, a good, efficient school. So those are those numbers.
So in terms of closing King Elementary, so let's say that you just had to. I'm not saying that you do, because you all make the decision, but if something come, you had to, what would be the plan to be able to transfer students from King Elementary, say between Pinnacle and then Poplar Springs, or wherever else that you would, you know the schools better than I do, but I mean, is there a way to do that?
Well, there's always a way.
Would y'all think about this and let us all talk
Okay,
before you
yeah,
answer
okay,
questions?
yeah. And then,
Just Make sure
And
we
then just
don't miss anything.
one last thing that you can think about too. So I had several people that I've talked with lately, and they're from the Walnut Cove area, not the mayor. So I don't want to put the heat on you. Wasn't the mayor. But they were asking me, what is the plan? Why can't Walnut Cove get the new elementary school? And I said, well, I'm not. That's not my area. But I'll certainly ask. But then they made a comment that they said they'd heard you had made a comment, Dr. Rice, in one of your presentations or something that you had thought about an elementary school in a new elementary school in Walnut Cove.
I believe in. You want me to answer now or not?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Don't do that. Don't do it. Don't save it. I'm done.
Maintain a little order here and give you guys a little time to think about your stuff.
Well, I will say this, we have thought about all these questions over and over and over, so
How many rehearsals did y'all have?
we didn't have any rehearsals, but we've been talking about it for months and months, and believe me, we ran every scenario through our minds over and over, so I haven't heard a question yet that we hadn't already talked about and discussed, and pretty much know the answer to it right off our heads. But we can wait and go back and revisit it.
All right, Commissioner Wood.
Give you a little bit of well, first of all, I want to pick on Sonia,
Okay.
if I may. I lived in Pinnacle 13 years and I paid a water bill in King, so if that's not true, you mayor, I need a refund.
Oh. Maybe I should have just said sewer, not water. I'm
And my
sorry.
house was behind the school.
Sorry. I should have just said sewer. Sewer. My bad.
If the good Lord lets me go into next year, January the 2nd, I will have 52 years in the construction business selling steel. I've seen more schools built and furnished them than y'all have ever seen. I'm project managing 2 schools right now in the eastern part of the state. King needs a school. I don't want to argue with you. I cannot see a $30 million plus school going on that site. You're going to look at 10% for tearing down the old school, whatever it costs to build a school. I deal and talk with school contractors every day. And I'm not going to quote, and don't ask me, but I got square foot prices. I hope y'all have. I get updates on the lottery. I got a spreadsheet on the bonds that Mecklenburg County and other counties have got. I just hate the site. So come up with another site, please. The question I don't understand and want to explain in detail, and I'm sure y'all have heard me say this before. I went through a consolidation with North and South Stokes. Yes, I'm that old. I don't see how you can do this without redrawing the lines. That's the part that's blowed my mind. I just don't get it. This is a big change for everybody, and I survived it, and I turned out all right. I thought I was going to Lawsonville High School, but then at the last minute, bam, 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 and I'm going to North Stokes. So, kids are tough. Like I said, I'm for King. I got family that lives in King. I go to King. I go to King too much. I mean, to eat and buy groceries. But we need a plan on where this is heading, because how old is King Elementary now?
Which part?
Which part? It was built in 50, 61, 72,
The oldest
78.
part. The oldest part.
1950.
All right. So you're going to build a school on a site that's going to sit there another 50, 70 years? I mean, that's why the site's got to be perfect. That's my construction view of it, and I've even bounced it off some builders, and they're familiar with it, and they go, they're not going back there, are they? So please reconsider that. That's all I got.
All righty. I'll jump in and give a few comments, and then we can let the school folks respond to the earlier questions. First of all, I'm going to jump around a little bit, but the fact that getting a grant is a no-brainer if you only have to put $2 million up to get 30-something million. I think our public speaker made that comment, and I've heard that other places, that it's a no-brainer. Well, we agree that's a no-brainer. But to me, a bigger issue would be to get that grant and not spend it wisely. So I'm not in near as big a hurry to get the grant as I am to figure out how we would spend it wisely and then get the grant, whether that be this year or whether that be next year or whichever year, because the grants are available, I think, each year from this fund to use. I don't think we have a great chance of getting it. I'm going to take a little bit of time here. Criteria are what they call the prioritization of what they're looking for the people they're going to award the grants. There are 7 priorities, I guess, or criteria. One is that number 1 is counties designated as development tier 1 areas. Number 2 is counties with greater need and less ability to generate sales tax and property tax revenue, which I think is talking about areas where there's not much value in housing and business and so forth to the county to generate revenue and sales tax. In counties with a high debt to tax revenue ratio. Then number 4 is the extent to which a project will address critical deficiencies in adequately serving the current and future student population. Number 5 is projects with new construction or complete renovation of existing facilities, which is what Dr. Rice said. They're primarily focused on new construction or complete renovations. Number 6 is projects that will consolidate 2 or more schools into one new facility. And then the last one is counties that have not received a grant under this article in the previous 3 years, and we're okay on that one, that particular one. So if you look at those criteria, and then you look at what we have, first of all, we have a low debt to tax ratio this year of about, you have to calculate it annually, but of about 10%. So we're not going to score high in the debt to tax ratio because we don't have a high debt to tax ratio. We're a tier 2 county and they're looking for tier 1 counties. As I understand it, the plan that you guys have, and you can comment on this, your plan does not consolidate 2 or more schools into one new facility. It takes an existing school and consolidates one school into it, if I understand it correctly. And it does not address the plan, which your plan to me is you close an elementary school in each of the high school districts and you're building a new school in King at the existing location. So that's the plan I'm commenting on. That does not address critical deficiencies, in my opinion, in adequately serving future student population because the plan has no future phases to it, other than the one maybe that Dr. Rice mentioned is 7 years from now we're going to do something when the debt gets paid off. So personally, if I was evaluating the grant with what your current plan is, it doesn't seem to me that would be that you would score very high. You guys can comment on that if you disagree. I'm kind of a little bit interested in the way that our discussion, I think, I asked a question back when I was county manager. I asked Dr. Rice, I said, when we saw these big decreases in student population, I said, well, how low does the population have to get before we start seeing some cost reductions in the school and the amount of money that the county needs to fund for the school? And he gave a good answer. It was basically we have certain fixed costs with 19 schools and so forth and so on. But I think that kind of got this discussion going or people thinking about this. So now I think if you ask anybody, they say we have to do consolidation. I mean, Commissioner Mendenhall, I think his comments about looking at the surrounding schools kind of backs that up as well. But it seems to me that our discussion has now moved from the strategic plan that we asked for, which is what I'm looking for is a comprehensive long-range plan that will allow us to do the budgeting we need to do and so forth. And it's sort of shifted from that to we've got to meet the grant deadline this year. And to me, I would not agree to separate the grant from the strategic planning that needs to be done. To me, the grant is a component of a long-range strategic plan, and I think Masonboro gave us an example of what a long-range strategic plan looks like. And I'll talk some more about that later, or pretty quick actually. I think another issue, and I think it's been mentioned a couple times tonight maybe already, based on Dr. Rice's presentation to us at our last commissioner meeting, it seems to me that it's a real high priority to do something with King Elementary now. If you rebuild a new school in that location, I assume those kids will still be there for 4 or 5 years till we get that done. To me, that looks like something that needs to be addressed next year if I was sitting in you guys' seats, of getting those kids somewhere besides where they're at, just based on all the pictures and the description that was presented at our last commissioner meeting on the condition of that school, and also from comments that Commissioner Chandler's made. I would make that a high priority of figuring some way to address that issue as well. Let me talk about the Masonboro report a little bit. You know, I've funded a lot of projects prior to getting to local government and some since in local government. Something like the Masonboro report is what I would require before I would fund much of anything, basically. It's a comprehensive report. It's got long-range phases in it, 7 of them, I believe. It's got a set of important criteria, and I'll read those to you out of the report. The study criteria: to ensure that the study was done in a manner that would demonstrate objectivity, the following criteria will be utilized: 70% capacity or greater of each elementary school facility, reduction in bus transportation cost, improved cost effectiveness of school food services, reduction in school facility operation cost, no child moved more than once to another school, and improved student education across opportunities and achievement across the county. I don't, with all due respect, I don't think the plan you've given us, I don't know which one of those it accomplishes. I don't sense that it accomplishes, or at least it doesn't explain how it accomplishes any of those criteria. I think those are all really important. I'm not saying the Masonboro report that was given is a perfect product. To me, it's just phase 1 of a discussion that should continue with Masonboro, because the Masonboro does this for a living. They're experts at doing this, and our board and your board are not experts at doing consolidation plans. And you have the additional burden, the elected officials on your board, of just about anything you do will be perceived as biased, political, and favoring some elected official's agenda. I don't think you could hardly produce a report that wouldn't be interpreted by a significant number of people, depending on who got taken care of and who didn't. And so to me, it's kind of like, I'll go back to the no-brainer comments. You've got to have an objective third-party set of experts give you the plan based on input that you give them. like I said, it doesn't have to be the first product they deliver you. It could be an iterative process. But that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. That's something I can hand to Doug Carter Associates and say, give me a funding strategy that'll fit with this plan. Can't do that with what you guys have, I don't think, at this point. Let's see if I covered. And then the report, the Masonburg report, I think it said build a East Stokes Elementary School. Brad said, why not Walnut Cove? You know, there's more than one option than just putting the elementary school back in King at the same location. To me, that seems like we're not really consolidating like we should. We're not really changing anything. We're just kind of doing the status quo. You know, we did this a few years ago with Nancy Reynolds. All this political community movement, got to rebuild that school right where it's at because get all the reasons, something about some money that came in annually from the Reynolds Foundation or something. But I would just ask, you know, did we make the right decision? Is that school sitting in the place that most benefits us now? I think everybody can have an opinion on that. And I'm afraid, you know, I really feel like if we put this school right back in that congested area that has the issues that it's already had, I'll be explaining that after I've left local government to people on why I did that. And so I have a real problem with putting it back at that location. I'm all in favor of supporting a grant to do a plan that's logical and makes sense and supported by lots of data. And I don't think we're there with what the current proposal is that you guys have. The last commissioner meeting we had, a lady kind of flagged me down out in the hall just as I was coming in, and she's in the room tonight, as a matter of fact. But she asked me, she said, is there any way you can make them start all over with this plan? I said, well, no, that ain't the way the system works. We can't do that. I said, but we do have a financial piece to play in this, and so we do have some leverage with what happens with that. That's been the support. I've never had any issue as county manager or a commissioner where I had as much unsolicited feedback on the current plan that you guys have. And it's all been negative. I've had, across the board, all negative. I've had maybe two people, I think, during the past week, or maybe three, call and lobby me to put the school in King at the same location. Otherwise, I've had lots and lots and lots of input from folks that they don't think it's well thought out. They don't understand why this one's getting this and we're getting screwed. They don't think that the Board of Education has listened to their input. I mean, you made a decision to do this grant before you had a public hearing, and you've only had one public hearing. And all the stakeholders are out there in the county, you know, making their comments, but at least they're telling me that they're not being heard. And nothing's changed on the plan with all the public input that's come in. So I mean, I'm just reflecting exactly what it's been just from the people that have contacted me personally. I think I'll stop there. I'll have some other comments later, but I think kind of that's where I'm at with where we're at right now. And I would just, it'd be my recommendation I think Masonburg, I reread the report again this weekend. I've read it several times. A lot of the people that contacted me haven't read it, or, you know, and of course a lot of people don't have time, or they're not involved in this like we are, but I read it 2 or 3 times, and to me, it's just what I was looking for, and I really hated to hear that it was being tossed and that you guys were gonna do this yourself, so. At this point, you guys wanna take a break, or do you wanna start responding back to the comments that we've made?
I'm good with a break.
Yeah, we take a 5-minute recess.
5-minute recess, and we'll be back here, not later than 10.
Reverend, don't hold on.
call our meeting back to order from the recess and turn the floor over to Vaughn and the other board members to comment on what you've heard from us.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Morris. We'll let each of us, if we have some questions we want to respond to, we can. But I do want to start it off. And the thing I want to start it back off with is talking just for a few minutes about the Masonboro plan. We have heard that Masonboro plan thrown around quite a bit. And you know, usually it's, well, we really like a Masonboro plan. It's a good long-term plan, just like Chairman Morris just spoke of there before the recess. Good strategic plan. And we, to tell you the truth, we were very excited about Masonboro coming presenting to us at our meeting. We thought that it was going to be really good. But what people don't understand, I think sometimes, is what's in the Masonboro plan. And I'm going to just hit some highlights of it. I don't have it in front of me. That's okay. I've been over it enough to, I think I can remember most of it. But the Masonboro plan, I think phase number 1, and the very first thing that they did was close King Elementary and Pinnacle Elementary. Both schools, both elementary schools in King. And you're closing schools with about 570 students. And they were going to consolidate those two schools into Poplar Springs and Mount Olive. And Poplar Springs and Mount Olive together maybe would hold another 200, 250 students. So we have, you know, we have probably 350 students or more, 400 students close to it that we don't know what are we going to do with them. We don't have anywhere to put them. So that was right off the bat, to me was a red flag about the Masonboro. That's in the West District. Chestnut Grove, West Oak stayed the same. We ended up with 2 elementary schools and nowhere near enough capacity to hold all the students. The students, I guess, would be going to Nancy Reynolds. It would probably be the great shift would happen. We'd go from Mount Olive to Poplar Springs, from Poplar Springs to Germantown, and it just, I think, keep working its way around the county, or I don't know where we would put them. There's no telling. The South District, was really messed up. In the South District, now get this, in the South District, they were going to take Southeastern and move it to South Stokes. Okay? They were going to take Southeastern and move it to South Stokes. You're going to have a 6th through the 12th grade at South Stokes. And you were going to have about 950 students moving into a school with about a 975 student capacity. And trying to keep everybody separated, trying to keep everything working like it needs to work. There's no way. We had even talked about, in our plan, we'd even talked about moving Piney Grove to North Stokes. And if we move Piney Grove to North Stokes, you're going to be moving combined about 500 students at North Stokes with a school of about 750 capacity. And we had our principals and Dr. Rice all came to us and said, it won't work. It just won't work. I think Mr. Racy's comments was a sports car may hold 10 people, but it's not designed to hold 10 people. Maybe some of you heard him say that. So when we heard the principals and Dr. Rice tell us that it was not a good idea to combine Piney Grove to North Stokes when you have 500 students and a 750 student capacity, I don't know. I don't understand how we were going to get Southeastern to South Stokes when you got 950 students into a school with 975 capacity. There's no way that would work. But they wanted to put the middle school to the high school, and then they were going to close Germantown, Walnut Cove Elementary, London, and Pine Hall, and move all 4 of those elementary schools to Southeastern, and only have 1 elementary school in the South District, Southeastern Elementary. So you'd end up in the West District with 2 elementary schools of King, of Poplar Springs and Mount Olive, and you would end up with 1 elementary school in the south of Southeastern Elementary, and a middle high school in the South District, a middle school and a high school in the West District, and then the North District was going to stay with Nancy Reynolds, Lostville, Sandy Ridge, Piney Grove, and North Stokes. The North District would stay the same. And that plan took about 15 years to develop. It was about a 15-year plan. It did in the outreach 15th year or 14th year, 13th year. They did talk about an East Oaks Elementary School, and that would be built somewhere on the east side of the county, maybe around Dillard, as they say. But that would take in part of Pine Hall, Sandy Ridge, part of Walnut Cove, and build a new elementary school that would be built and open in around 350 students when it opened its doors. And with declining population, you may end up in a few years with that 350 down to 300 or 275. Would that be a good idea? I don't know. I think 10 years from now, 15 years from now, the time will tell if it's the right idea or not. And we've discussed the same thing. You know, with our plan, if you take the schools in the county, and if we're going to leave all 3 high schools the same, if we're going to leave all 3 high schools just like they are, and we're going to leave all 3 middle schools just like they are, then we're down to the elementary schools. And we've got 5 elementary schools that we know we're not going to change. Okay, we got Nancy Reynolds, and we're not going to change them mainly because of the location or the age of them. We've got Nancy Reynolds, we've got Mount Olive Elementary, we've got Poplar Springs, we've got Germantown, Walnut Cove Elementary. Those are the 5 that we're probably not going to change because of where they are, how old they are, the condition, whatever it is. So that leaves us 6 elementary schools. That leaves us King Elementary and Pinnacle Elementary in the West District. It leaves us London and Pine Hall in the South District. And it leaves us Lawsonville and Sandy Ridge in the North District. Those are the 6 schools that we have to work with, to consolidate. And we can consolidate one of those 6 schools in each district and have room to consolidate it. But in the West District, we can't consolidate King and Pinnacle into Poplar Springs and Mount Olive. There's not enough room. In the South District, we can't consolidate Pine Hall and London into Walnut Cove Elementary and Germantown Elementary. There's not enough room. We can do 1 school, but we can't do 2 schools. And in the North District, we can consolidate Lawsonville and Sandy Ridge either direction, but we can't do both. Either one of those 2 schools is only big enough for one of the other schools. And in the north, if we closed Sandy Ridge and sent them to Lawsonville, half of Lawsonville still has to go to Nancy Reynolds in order to make room for the other students coming from Sandy Ridge. And that just didn't make sense to us. We thought it would be better to close Lawsonville and split them halfway between Sandy Ridge and Nancy Reynolds. If you close Sandy Ridge and you send them to Lawsonville, and you take half of Lawsonville and send them to Nancy Reynolds, and those half that's going to Nancy Reynolds is not going to be happy about that. They're having to get out of their school for Sandy Ridge to come in and be in their school. So when you look at it, it really boils down to a pretty simple solution. Now, when you get outside of that main first round, as I call it, the consolidating of the 3 elementary schools and hopefully getting a grant and building a new school for King Elementary, then once you get past that, a lot of it depends on funding. You know, how much funding are we going to have to work with? You know, we need to add on to Germantown or Walnut Cove Elementary if we're going to close London. Or we're going to have to add on to, you know, another school somewhere to do any more consolidation. There's no other easy way to do it without spending some money. And we think that you take 6 or 8 years. Commissioner Mendenhall was good to show us the debt, the amount of the payment. And I think most of that debt is paid out. Ms. Moore can help me with that probably in the next 8 years or so. Is that correct, Ms. Moore? Roughly 8 years. So I think in 7 or 8 years down the road, we get a better view of what the population's doing, where the population is located. Is it in King? Is it in Walnut Cove? Is the north side of the county growing? Is the north side of the county continue to decline? You know, are we going to end up having to go with Piney Grove to North Stokes and make Piney Grove an elementary school? But those will be questions that could be answered 6, 7, 8 years down the road when we get a better picture of where the population is shifting. I think for us to just try to decide that now, you know, we can say right now we're going to build an East Oaks Elementary in 10 years and we're going to do whatever, but it may not be warranted to do that. So I think it's a little bit irresponsible on our side to come up with a long-range plan. If I was thinking about funding it, I would say put your funding in place that's gonna be generating revenue and putting it back, and then that way in 6 or 8 years, we've got some money to work with. But to tell you right now exactly what that's gonna be, I'm not sure that anybody can do that. And there's been talk, well, we should get Masonboro back to do another study. Somebody said, well, they got the wrong information. Well, I'll tell you that Masonboro walked the halls of every school we got. Right, Dr. Rice?
Yes, sir.
They went and they walked the halls. Richie back there was probably with them a lot of the time. They walked the halls and they see what kind of room we had in the schools. They walked the halls at Poplar Springs Elementary School. And if they thought we could add another 300 or 400 students to Poplar Springs, I'm not sure what they were looking at. So to get them back and give them another chance to go back through it again, I don't know that that's the right thing to do. I think when you break it down, the schools that you're going to leave the same, and I think we're all in agreement, everybody in this room, that we're going to leave all of our high schools the same, and we're going to leave all of our middle schools the same. And I think we can almost everybody agree that we've got 5 elementaries that we're not going to touch. Right? We're not going to close Nancy Reynolds. We're not going to close Poplar Springs. There's 5 schools that we're not going to touch. We can't touch. It only leaves us 6 elementary schools. That's what it boils down to. So we've tried to make a decision on which we thought would be the best, where we're going to affect less students, moving them around, how it's going to affect the less number of students. We come up with the idea of getting a grant. If we can be lucky enough to win a grant and get $38 million, and if we do win the grant, then Commissioner Mendenhall, that's when the $2 million is paid. If we don't win the grant, then there's never any money forwarded for the grant. It's a moot point. It's not an easy decision. Like I said, we've been Board Member Bryant and myself will be on the phone, I don't know how many times, for hours, and we'll talk about it. And we'll say, what if we did this? What if we did that? And the same with the other board members. We've been over it many times in our heads and trying to figure out what is the best plan. And like it's been said here tonight, there is no easy plan. Funding, we met with the commissioners on 2 different occasions and trying to get an idea of how much funding we would have. Could we renovate a school? Could we add on to a school? And to this point, we have no idea what funding may be available. We haven't been told any amount of funding. So the plan that we're coming up with in consolidation doesn't cost us any money. We went out and came up with an idea on our own that didn't cost us any money to do. It doesn't cost us any money to consolidate Lawsonville into Sandy Ridge into Nancy Reynolds. It don't cost us any money to consolidate Pine Hall into Walnut Cove Elementary in London. It'll cost us some money to move some desks and move some books and move some personal items and stuff like that, but we don't have to add on or do any kind of addition to the school or renovation in order to consolidate what we're doing right now. Now, if we close King Elementary, I did the numbers one day. If we close King Elementary, we would probably be above capacity if we consolidate all those into Poplar Springs, Mount Olive, and Pinnacle, and close King Elementary this fall, right? We're going to be over capacity before we ever start on those 3 schools. And with the way King is growing, we're going to be in mobile classrooms year 1. We don't have the room. I think a lot of people here, there's a lot of King Elementary people here tonight. And a lot of people would agree, yeah, King Elementary is not the best school we have, right? And you saw that in your tour. And I want to publicly thank Commissioner Chandler for coming over to King Elementary and walking to school with us. And I think it was very eye-opening for him to come over and see the school, right?
Well, shocking.
Shocking. And it's shocking. There were some things that I saw that I haven't seen before. When Mr. Bryant, the principal there, moved the table in the little room inside the office, he said that, the table may look funny sitting in this space where it is, but he moved the table and there's a 6-inch hole in the floor that's a sewer pipe. He said the table's sitting there to cover up the hole in the floor, right? Yeah, we'd love to have a different King Elementary or different school or a place we can put them and provide better for our students. We don't have choices. We don't have anywhere to put them. So yeah, it's tough decisions. So yeah, if we had funding would be great. If we knew how much we want to have in 5 years from now, and how much we might be available, then that would be great. We could maybe start making a better plan. How do we do that? But right now, the only thing we can do is consolidate some schools that doesn't cost us any money. So I don't know if I answered any questions or I just kind of got on my soapbox a little bit. I hope I answered some of those questions. But I will turn it over now and let anybody else that wants to answer questions, or somebody may have made a better list of questions than I did. I will address the location of King Elementary, and I will say this too about traffic. Traffic's come up, the location's congested. Well, a lot of King is congested. But at Poplar Springs Elementary, the SRO stands out in 66 to help people get out of the school. Because they have so many people coming out of the school onto 66, the SRO stands out and directs traffic. We don't have to do that, I don't think, at King Elementary. I think we have two ways out, actually, to exit the school, Kirby Road and Main Street in King, so we got two ways out. Mount Olive Elementary and Chestnut Grove Middle School are side by side. They share some of the same parking lots. And back at the beginning of school, when we had open houses, they had to alternate their nights for open houses. They couldn't have open house on the same night because they couldn't accommodate all the cars. They couldn't accommodate all the people. They have to use both parking lots of both schools in order to have an open house and accommodate the parents. So they had to schedule Chestnut Grove on one night and Mount Olive Elementary on a different night so that they'd have room. And if you ever go by there in the morning or anywhere up and down Chestnut Grove Road, the traffic trying to drop kids off and pick kids up is actually sitting out in the street, right? So probably to me, King Elementary is fourth on the list as far as traffic congestion. If we're worried about traffic and we're worried about congestion and safety, then we're probably going to have to do something about Poplar Springs, Mount Olive, and Chestnut Grove before we ever get to King Elementary. King Elementary is probably one of the better ones. And the problem is where Kirby Road goes into Old 52. And that's a DOT problem. That's not a King Elementary problem. That's a DOT problem. If they put a stoplight there or they do something with the traffic, and if you think it's bad when the school lets out at 2 something, go by there about 5 or 5:30 in the afternoon when everybody's getting off work. Now they're backed up all the way past the school. Yeah, you can't get out. So that's a DOT problem. And I know the city maybe has been working on that some. I've heard rumors that they've been trying to work with DOT. But it's not a King Elementary problem. In the site, we've got 20 some acres there, 22, 24 acres at King Elementary. We can go back up to where the old high school used to be. It's up the hill. It's a great area. And we can build a new King Elementary school there. We can build a new, if we were lucky enough to get a grant or get funding for a school, we can build a school up there. And once the school is built, we can move the students from the old school over to the new school. We don't have to do like I did when I built Nancy Reynolds. We don't have to go and tear the school down, put up mobile classrooms, move the students, build a school, move the students back, tear the pods down. We don't have to do any of that. We can leave the students where they are and then move them to the new school once the school is finished. That to me is a pretty good plan, right? We got water, we got sewer. If we want to move it somewhere between King and Pinnacle, okay, well go find me 20 acres of land that's got water and sewer, that's in between King and Pinnacle, that's not right over next to Mount Olive or Chestnut Grove or somewhere like that, and we'll look at it.
And that would be an additional cost to the county because you can't use the grant to buy land.
Right. So we'd have to buy land, and I'm going to guess that the land that we're buying is going to be probably as much or more than the land that King Elementary sits on is worth. And I admit the land at King Elementary is worth some money. It's 22, 23 acres in the middle of the city. It's probably worth some money. But the alternatives are slim. There's not many alternatives. The sewer in King is not very widespread, right? Mr. McGraw, it's not spread out It's not developed as much as it needs to be. So to find a place, so if we don't get it on sewer, now we're gonna have to buy probably 100 acres of land in order to have our septic system. I think Lawson will have to buy additional property in order to build a septic system up there. Is that right, Mr. Bryant? They had to buy extra land
Yes, sir.
in order to put the septic system in. And so now you're getting into more money. So we've thought about a lot of these things, and we do feel like we have put thought into it. It's not a political plan. Everybody's going to perceive it as political if you want to, but we feel like we're looking after the whole county. We don't really know much more that we could do to put thought into it and try to come up with a plan. I feel like we did a pretty good job coming up with a plan that didn't cost us any money. Right? We're not coming to you asking you that we need $15 million to renovate this school to keep it open, or we need $15 million to add on to this school. We've figured out a way that we can consolidate and eliminate at least 2, maybe 3 schools, maybe even build a new school and get rid of the 4 of our old schools with no money except for the $2 million grant match. That's not bad. That's not bad. So, again, I thought I had stopped a while ago, but I saw the note on the traffic, so I'll Mr. Rogers, you have anything you want to add?
If King Elementary goes away, like you said, it needs to. Now I'm upside down 36 students without figuring in pre-K or EC. I don't have a place to put them because I am at max capacity at both Poplar Springs, Mount Olive, or Pinnacle. That's based on core capacity, classroom capacity, and what the students that are enrolled today are.
Can I make
Yeah.
a comment? So, what you just made comments you did when you were building Nancy Reynolds. You had pods.
We don't want to go to pods.
Well, temporary. I'm not saying permanent. I'm saying
Yeah, we've
temporary.
got some at some of the schools right now, like Sandy Ridge, that were temporary in 1974.
Well, but,
They're still there.
But hey, we're all in current power right now. We can't blame somebody else.
Exactly, but we know once a pod goes in, it never seems to leave.
However, the pods at Nancy Reynolds, we're making the last payment on those pods this year. Isn't that right, Ms. Hampton? The last payment on the pods at Nancy Reynolds is this year. Just wanted to throw that out.
So we're using pods for the early college now. So, I mean, if you look at I went with data, like Commissioner Morris said. I'm data driven. I looked at the study. We can go out to 2030 on population. Where is it at? Where is it going to be? What are the growth areas? And I shared with Ms. Cox a while ago. King is still in the red. It is still going to be our second largest elementary school, the King Elementary District. So that's why we picked King. Walmart didn't build somewhere else because they chose King because that's where the majority of the people are. We're trying to keep the schools closer to the students. Building a school to bus a child to it is kind of ludicrous. You need to be where the people are. It's just a common business model. Right now, if you follow the Mason Borough plan, they're wanting to redraw district lines that put 350 at North Stokes, 350 at South Stokes, 500 at West Stokes. But they also said they wanted to be above 70% capacity. So South Stokes at that point would be right at 35, 40%, North Stokes at about 40%, West Stokes at about 50% capacity. So trying to bust it up with the numbers we've got, because we're down 1,400 students from 2010. We're down a lot of students, so trying to maintain that. As far as a 10-year plan, in 10 years, if you look at the numbers projected of students that are in the system, this isn't a guess. They are in our system now, and when they get to high school, here's where they would be. Between North Stokes and South Stokes, you're going to have about 600 kids. So a board 7 to 10 years is going to have to look at either a new East Stokes High School to get a manageable number, or we renovate a high school and put everybody into 2. Now, the Masonboro plan also called for something I found kind of humorous. The career and technical education, although we're taking students and spreading them out and having fewer students per school, they're wanting to add a drone technology class and an agricultural diesel trucking mechanic class at South, and then animal science 1 and 2, equine science, and veterinary assistant at North. So they're wanting to add classes. When we get paid, we get reimbursed per student. Right now, our CTE, we're running right about all we've got, but yet the numbers are going to go down. So how are we going to add more services with less money? It's kind of like you face with DSS and the Sheriff's Department. I'll never forget, about 5 years ago, I heard Commissioner Morris say, when he was still the county manager, or back in that transition, every service comes with a price tag. Are you willing to pay it? So as we add services, we would have to add price tag. So part of the Masonburg group plan was to also add a 1/4 cent sales tax. We tried that, didn't work. I don't know if you guys want to revisit it, because we are not a taxation authority. We don't have that power.
We talked about that.
Yeah, I mean, we can all talk about it, but again, it becomes money. So what it boils down to, why did we choose King? Because that's where the key people are. Why don't we move King Elementary? We need the money to buy the property to put a new school in. So when we come and hear funding is an issue, and we understand, I mean, it's public record, the fund balance isn't the greatest in the world. We're trying to do with what we've got and be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. When you look at our budget submissions, I mean, we give y'all a copy every year. We didn't do anything but just cost of living increases based on what we thought the projections were going to be. Because trust me, if there's one accountant I trust more than anybody in this world, she's sitting right there. She's probably going to keep her head down because she's very modest. And
Past our bedtime.
Yeah. Yeah, she's like, oh Lord, Mike's getting on a roll again. But I mean, that's kind of where we're looking at. King is full. We don't have any place to put it, so we're looking at a train wreck, and we're just sitting here going, how do we get out from underneath it? Our grant is our buying of a lottery ticket. We're hoping we get it. We're hoping y'all fund it. But if we don't, we're still upside down with no place to put them unless we move every student in Stokes County around to shuffle the deck. And then if at the public comments, if you heard one parent didn't want to move their kid, you're going to hear every one of them, because now every child's nucleus of support and friends is now busted up for half of the county. Because half of the county is in the northern district, King is only 18%. It covers 50%. Walnut Cove, South District, 33 as far as students, vice landmass size. So I know Ms. Knight was real, we don't want to put kids on the buses anymore, and I agree with that. We don't want to make the boundary lines any further to where we're having to bus the kids for a greater distance because they're already on the bus too long. God put them out in the middle of the county, we're just dealing with it. So if there's any other questions, go for it. Go.
So
yeah.
I get what you're saying, and I get what you're saying, and I get what Dr. Rice is saying. And I don't have a problem with some of what you're saying. But what I'm used to is you put it, we've had a conversation. So we want to know what your recommendations are. What you're trying to do is play both worlds. So what you're saying, we went ahead and came up with our own plan because, we asked you during the budget time, how much money did we have to do renovations or how much money do we have to do this? That's not the way it works. The way it works is you say what you want to do, what you think is the best thing, and then you give us what that price tag is going to be, or you bring us options like we're going through right now, but it's in writing, and then we have conversation when we're in the budget season. Ideally, we would get it and put it part of a strategic plan so it's not tomorrow. It's easy, and I think sometimes what we do is we sit, and we're the same way. We kind of, we sit and we talk, and we're not talking with y'all. Y'all are talking too, and you're not talking to us. And then what it does, it comes to a boiling point where, hey, we need action. We need a signature to say that we'll fund the grant. And again, I'm for the grant. And I'm also for moving King Elementary like ASAP. But no one has ever come to me in the position of a board commissioner saying, look, we have got to do something with King Elementary. It's our priority. Come take a tour. When I got the offer, I went. And it needs to be done. But y'all aren't focused on that. Y'all aren't focused on just building another school near King Elementary. But yet the school's so bad, but you're willing to wait 8 years with these kids going to that school until we can free up debt. That don't seem that urgent to me. I don't have a kid that goes there or a grandkid that goes there. And I'm upset. That shouldn't be. That's what I'm talking about. I agree with what you're saying. You're exactly right. You're reading the stats.
So should we come next week and ask for money for King Elementary?
Yes.
Okay.
You should have come last year or 2 years or whatever else.
Can
Come
we
up
ask-
with a plan.
So if we come next week and ask for 3 elementary schools, because that's really what our county needs.
Okay. Show us the plan. Show us the money. Show us.
And I guess that's the frustrating part, is because I understand what you and Commissioner Morris are saying, that y'all believe you get a plan and then you look for the money. Again, I apologize. I was raised in a pastor's family. Luke 14 said, don't build a tower unless you know what the cost is beforehand, so you know if you can finish it. Well, I believe if you know what the money is, then you can develop a plan that matches the money. And so instead of creating a plan and y'all saying, no, well, we'll try, okay, so we'll have a $150 million plan. No, we can't do that. Well, let's do a $90 million plan. No, we can't do that. Well, let's do a $30 million plan. No, we can't do that. Well, let's do so just, if the answer is $10 million, tell us we got $10 million, we know what to do. We can figure it out. If we know we got $100 million, we know what we can do to figure it out. But it's hard to make a plan. I mean, I don't know anybody that's ever built a house without a budget first. Even when I'm trying to build a storage building, I know how much money I have, and then I figure out what size I can build. Or if I just need to not do anything, because I can't build anything.
Well, I go on need.
But I
I go on
can't.
needs. When I have a need,
Well, okay,
then I go
our
out and get
need
the best
is
price
we have-
that there is.
We have 6 schools built in the 50s. That's a need. That's not going away. They're 73 years old.
Dr. Rice, I'm your biggest supporter. I agree, but put it in writing and give us some quotes and give us some ideas. But King Elementary needs to go ASAP.
Well, and I guess this is the thing that's frustrating to me is, again, I understand how boards work. Three votes for a board, but different people disagree. Commissioner Morris has kept mentioning the Masonboro plan. Back in the budget season, Mr. Mendenhall said, "You've wasted your money. Give me the money next time." That was not worth the paper it's written on, basically. It's not an exact quote, but it was close. And that's 2 people on the same board. One likes the plan, one didn't like the plan. And so, and we've heard from people, and the question was asked, well, what about a new Walnut Cove Elementary School or a new London Elementary School or those type of things, because Dr. Rice mentioned it. I don't know many things we haven't mentioned. The only thing I can think of that we haven't mentioned is we've not mentioned closing Poplar Springs. I think every other school at some point has been mentioned with being closed or renovated or something. I think every school, we've mentioned an option of consolidating all 3 high schools into one. So every high school's been mentioned. Every middle school's been mentioned, and there's always the that can't happen. No matter what we do, you hear that. Now,
And everybody's fine with consolidation as long as it's not the schools that they went to or their grandparents went
I know
to.
we don't have an easy job. I know
Now,
that.
Now, we talked about ORED. Here's the ORED recommendation. You close North Stokes and there's no need for a high school in middle or high school in the northern region of the district. We know the people don't want that. So that became a non-starter. Just like the people don't want to redistrict to pull kids from here to there to go to other places that are further travel times. It also said the least effective schools are Pine Hall, Pinnacle, and Lawsonville. So there's your financial dollars. And that's what the board first pass through decided on based on what the transportation is. Now, I'm not saying that's our final vote, but that's where we leaned with, and that's where the consensus of the vote was. So, and that matches up with the population study that we had in page 6, as I shared with Ms. Cox, says Sandy Ridge is the growing area. So again, it was all a data-based. There was hard, concrete data. Now, we can't look out and see the kids that haven't been conceived yet, but we know where the ones that have been born, where they're residing at, based on the Stokes County Planning Board.
But then, of course, the other thing that's the ace or the wild card, I guess I should say, is we don't know what's going to happen with increase in homeschooling maybe, and also the tax dollars is getting ready to follow the kid. So
So now you see why we're hesitant about planning 6 years out, because Mr. Mendenhall and I and Ms. Cox sat on a board that said Lawsonville is growing. We need to do something. It had 196 students, and 10 years later it has 108. Anything less than 100, the state stops paying for you anyway.
I disagree. You still have to plan. You have to plan, and then as the years go by, you can always alter the plan. You don't just plan and lock it up in a cupboard over here and be blind and say, oh, it's 10 years, I'm going to open to see what the plan is, I'm going to spend money. It's fluid. But if you don't have stuff in writing and you're not planning, we all have budgets. It's just like when you're planning to retire. I mean, you just don't start, normally, you don't start putting money back when you want to retire in 2 years.
And it's hard for us to plan for next year, not knowing what the funding's going to be for next year.
Well, I can't give you funding until you tell me what you want to do. You're
I'm
not going to
talking
know
about
until
just
you do it, and then we say yes or no. It's
Ronnie, have you got your questions answered yet?
I can go through real quick. Do they have a plan? They have consensus on a plan, but not voted on it yet. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to answer your questions. I'm sorry.
First thing I want to is repeat what I quoted this summer.
Well, you made a statement.
I know I'm getting old, but
You made a statement about the Mason-Borough plan, and you said, next time, why don't you give me the money? I can come up with a lot better plan than that. I believe was the
I want
quote.
to see. I want to see that in the minutes somewhere, because I don't ever remember saying that.
Okay.
And my memory's pretty good, even though I'm 67 years old.
And again, I'm not saying it's an exact quote, but I'll look on the line and find it and send it to you.
I never said anything like that.
Okay. I apologize if I'm
Say
wrong.
never.
Yeah.
I was there too, and then you did say something
Don't
along
stay out
those
of
lines. Well, I just heard what I
Well,
heard.
again, I'll apologize if it was not meant to be an
Might not have
exact
been
quote.
these exact words, but it was the gist.
Don't quote somebody unless you got the exact word. That's my first thing. And then I'm gonna come up with this. Maybe everybody's forgot this. I asked for our board to come up and hire Andrew and Doug Carter, who are our financial advisors. Does anybody else remember that? And they said they would come up with a plan of how much money we had, and what our debt ratio would be, and what we would be able to do with that money. Am I correct?
Yep.
I was the one that brought that up, and it passed on a 5-0 vote. Is that correct? And Dr. Rice, until we get that group, I would be afraid to tell you.
we'll have a
I cannot sit here and tell you call out 3 schools you want built, and I'm gonna vote yes right now. Not what, you heard me read the statistics. And our budget balance, our fund balance is not 25 or 30%. We're talking about probably 12%. Okay? So you know in your mind that there's no way we can fund 3 schools.
And that's why we haven't asked.
Well, we're never going to go anywhere there in Stokes County. With the philosophy of we're all here and here. You got to have discussion, and until we get down to the nitty gritty, where we can figure out how much money is it going to cost. Now it's going to get built tomorrow, but we can find a pathway to get the stuff there and get it done. If we just throw our hands up every single time and just say, you know what, can't do it. So that's why we don't plan here. That's why it's just a good excuse to say, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring and we ain't got no money. So Stokes County will continue, our public safety will continue and not grow. Our fire departments won't continue to grow. Our education system, we'll just have more King Elementaries where we have more students sitting in places that they should not be sitting in. And what else? Our 911 center, all of our infrastructure will be a mess. And then we want to know why all the trends that I get in population study, it's the elderly that's moving in, people like me, 64 or older.
If you go back on the website, you said you were on the website, under the data, it gives the population study and it shows in 2030 what our population will be and also where the heat map is now and 5 years from now. And these are not the elderly, these are children born per the Stokes County Health Department residing in the county and what areas they are in. Now, it's not going to account for any growth in King because those houses haven't sold yet.
I've got your questions answered. You got yours answered, Brad?
Yep.
Do you have questions that you want to
I
answer?
don't think I had any
Otherwise,
questions,
we'll
but
go
I
back to
don't,
you
but
for
I
your
feel like
final round.
Dr. Rice was fixing to answer.
Well, I was
Rest
just
of
going to
Ronnie's.
go through the questions because I did write them down. Do we have a plan? The board has consensus on a plan, not an official vote, but they have consensus on a plan, and not unanimous, but as a board. The roof at King, Richie said, was 2007. What are we going to do if we don't get the grant? I guess we'll come to y'all and ask for money because the needs are not going away if the grant doesn't come. And in an ideal elementary school, 300 to 500 students, high school 600 to 1,000. And have I mentioned a school at London? Yes, but again, we mentioned Germantown, we mentioned London, we mentioned a lot of schools in the last 7 months. So yes, in a meeting was that mentioned? Yes. And if you go to other meetings, other things were mentioned. So those are the questions I had that were asked that wanted to make sure that we answered people's questions.
Okay, so now we'll do one more round here and then give you guys a chance to comment on what we say and then we'll quit. Is that good? Everybody?
Yeah.
I'll
Okay,
go
start
back
with
to my
you.
notes, just on some things that I had missed the first go around. One thing that I want to touch on is the Mason Borough study that's been mentioned, and we'll say, go on record as saying I would never be in favor of combining, myself personally, South Stokes and Southeastern, as that study says. The night that he presented that, one of those guys one of the retired superintendents in that group, I asked him to tell me how he would address the athletic situation, and he told me put the kids on a bus and send them back to Southeastern to practice, and to use the fields back at Southeastern. And I said, you know, time just wouldn't allow for that. I was on the school board for 15 and a half years. I can tell you that ain't gonna work. So he had no idea as to how that would be addressed, the athletic situation, and I just don't think that's the wisest idea. That being said, I wouldn't be in favor of doing it at North Stokes and Piney Grove either. I think we need to do everything we can do to keep all our high schools and middle schools open. The other problem that I have with that Mason Borough study another one of the problems that I mentioned to him was when he said to combine Pinnacle and to close Pinnacle and to close King and to put them at Mount Olive and at Poplar Springs, but had no mention in there of even renovating or adding on classrooms. And I said, I was on the board when we built that school. Yes, you can expand it, but you didn't even mention that in the study. And so that's a huge flaw right there. And then the redistricting and uprooting the greatest number of kids for what reason? I think the whole goal should be to limit the number of students that are having to be uprooted in the county. And, moving them one time, that just means, I don't even know what he means by that, except that they would go to middle and high school, their whole middle and high school at South Stokes. But
They would only change elementary schools once, is what they were trying to get to.
yeah, and so, that just doesn't make any sense. So, that being said, I do think down the line an East Stokes Elementary is probably something that we should plan for. I think these two boards should just start regularly trying to plan once a year, strategically planning ahead. I agree with Commissioner Chandler on that. The planning is a big thing. Even if we, like you said, and I've said it before myself, we can plan all day long, but none of us may be sitting here in 5 or 6 years. But that doesn't mean you don't plan. I do believe that you do plan and try to come up with solutions. Collaborative, strategic planning between our two boards, I think is key. And I think that what has happened in the past is that board members on both boards were so worried about getting reelected, they never did the right thing.
Amen.
And so, I think it's time we stop that and stop, trying to just worry about that and just do the right thing for kids at the end of the day and putting these students first, like we say that we're going to do. Let's just practice what we preach on that. I would recommend that the Board of Education form some type of committee with school personnel and community members, promote community engagement and try to figure out what to do with London. That's a huge thing right there that we need to figure out. Some type of preservation committee needs to be formed so that we don't want to, even if that school can't be utilized down the road as a K through 5th grade elementary school, it could be utilized in other ways. The Arts Council has lots of good ideas of things. Art-based elementary schools are huge all across the whole United States. The Appalachian folk schools are huge, and it's something that I know the Arts Council has looked into. There's lots of uses for that school, even if it's not, but it needs to start now planning that, start now trying to figure out how to keep that school viable in the community. I just wish all the people that would get on Facebook and give us all a hard time for any
That's part of
decision
the problem.
we make, just to to do the work. Roll up your sleeves and get involved and do the work instead of just being on there mouthing all the time about what we're trying to do. Because do we make all the right decisions? No, we're not going to. But we try, and I think it's in the best interest of the kids of what we're trying to do here. And, it's just not our job to micromanage this Board of Education. But at the same time, we are physically responsible for the funding and have lots of other departments that are way behind times, as Brad's mentioned down there. So I think that's about all that I have right now. But thank you all again for coming if I don't get a chance to say that again.
Mr. Woods, you got any comment?
I'll make it short and sweet. I see a lot of people yawning. Number one, I'll make the comment, more than once that I'm overqualified for this job because I got too much common sense. Question, what's the square footage of the new King Elementary? Is it gonna be the same square footage as the old one?
It'll be a little bigger is what we're planning on to hold
know that
about
square
500.
footage?
We have not got that far in the planning stage of looking at blueprints.
And this next question, if you can't answer live, tell me after the meeting, because I don't have a clue. What are architectural fees running? You want to tell me after?
We can talk afterwards.
Okay.
I need to get with Richie. I don't have.
All right, that's all I got.
Mr. Chandler?
I think I've said a lot. I just want to emphasize that I'm not against you all. I mean, I want to work with you. But, I would just rather, I mean, you're all the experts when it comes to education. I just want to see you put it in writing or tell me, give me some options and put the money to it. And then, you know what, if we can't get support to do whatever, then so be it. But in my opinion, you got to try. And I'm going to try very, very hard, not just with the schools, but with the rest of the county, what is in dire need as well. But we just got to have honest communication, no politics, what's best for the county. And I have to be honest, you know, I was shocked when, you know, you brought up our financial planner. I never even knew Stokes County ever had a financial planner. And I was impressed with that.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that you brought it up because that's what's done. And so thank you for that. And so we just need something so we can show him and his company, because his company, you know, he's a prior city manager, I believe, in Charlotte. He's got a lot of experience. He's not going to go on roundabouts. He wants to know exact money and plan and you know, what all it entails so we can find out how we can finance this stuff. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
I don't have much. I know y'all got a tough job. We got a tough job. All 10 board members have a tough job, and I certainly don't envy y'all right now. And I mean, I don't envy us either, but I don't envy y'all especially because somebody made the statement, and I'm not going to do an exact quote here, but somebody made the statement that, you know, no matter how you try to consolidate, some community's going to be upset. I'm not sure which person said that off the board, and I'm not going to try to recall their name. But somebody made the statement basically that if you close 2 or 3 schools and consolidate them into one, the schools that get closed, they're going to have some upset citizens. And that's just reality. I mean, it's reality. And I feel for y'all because I am, and I think every one of y'all, and if you have a different opinion, I've not come to one of y'all and tried to get y'all to work a certain way. Not come to any of y'all. Because you know why? That's y'all's job. That's not my job. It's not my job to try to tell you which schools to close or consolidate. You have 5 board members of education, and that's y'all's decision. And I'm not going to come and tell you, y'all got it. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All righty, and I'll wrap up. I would just say that, you know, based on the feedback I've had from the public primarily, plus my own opinion as well, that compared to Masonboro, I think the current recommended plan is kind of arbitrary and incomplete. It looks to me like we're just gonna close some schools, build a new one, then wait and see what happens next, then react to whatever that is. To me, that is not the proper approach to go about this business. It's about process and having a good process for figuring this out. When you do the local solution, nobody wants to redistrict anything. I happen to believe you have to redistrict in order to fix these kind of issues. Masonboro said this was the most complex situation they had seen, I think, during that presentation they gave, which just to me further supports the need for having an expert company that does this for a living come up with the final plan. And I can't believe it. You just take the first iteration and you don't like stuff in it and you just toss it and go off and do this on your own. Makes no sense to me. Why you wouldn't get them back, give them scenarios, give them your issues, and let the experts that will provide a non-biased, non-political, objective, professionally done plan. I would encourage folks, that are watching us and in the room here to go read the Masonboro report and look how they went about doing this, and then compare it to what you've heard tonight about this current plan. And I would agree with the comment that was made that it's irresponsible to do long-range planning. I disagree with that, and we've talked about that enough. I think that the public has a lot of the public and a lot of the county has a real problem with what we've come up with so far. So, I'm willing to work with you guys. If you go back to Masonboro and do a couple of iterations with them, and they say, build a new, replace King Elementary School in the same location, I'll be right there supporting it. But just not, without redistricting and the perceptions that are going around, then I think we've really got a lot of work to do collectively to come up with something that I can support. And like I said, I'm just one vote on the board. So, and with that, you guys have some.
I do have a question. We hear a lot about redistricting that you just spoke about. What do you mean when you say redistricting?
Moving district lines to make the plan work and not worry about how close somebody is to the current school they go to.
Can I ask a question to that? So you think that it's okay for a kid that lives across the road from Chestnut Grove to come to the north side of the county then?
You have it both ways, Dwayne. If you're going to support the bigger plan, you can't have everybody going to the closest school to them just because it's convenient.
You also can't redistrict just to kind of almost fill up a school or backfill for a school that doesn't have the enrollment. We're not trying to fix an overcrowding. We're trying to fix an overcapacity. Are we not? I mean, that's the whole reason for consolidation. We have more capacity and older buildings than we have students to fill them. So moving students from this area up here to make that, or down here, I mean, the Masonboro plan that everybody thinks is the gospel is taken from the west and the south to put them into the north area so that those schools can be at 50% capacity and south schools can be at 50% capacity and west Oaks can be at 50% capacity. We need to get where we're at 85% capacity to be efficient.
May I state that I don't think the Masonboro report is a gospel. I think it's the first iteration of 2 or 3 or 4 iterations with them that will produce a really good plan for you guys. It can't really be challenged by anybody. But they're going to challenge your plan all day long.
No, basically we follow the ORED
If
plan.
they're unhappy about the Masonboro report, then, or somebody like them that do this for a living, that takes an objective, non-political, non-biased look And you know, they have expertise. They do this for a living. We don't do this for a living. None of you
Why
guys
would they
do.
not have any answers to my questions if they do this for a living and they're such experts? And why could they not answer one of my questions?
Well, if you don't like them, hire somebody else. But
We
you
did,
know,
we
Well,
hired
that's
over
ORED,
it. We
though.
hired
What's wrong
over
with
it.
the ORED
That's another
study?
study. We had two, not just one. We
Yeah,
had
but
two.
the ORED was nothing in comparison to Mason Borough, in my humble opinion.
ORED was focused strictly on transportation.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and I reached out to
It's like a
Dr.
component of Mason Borough, the way I
Right.
think of it.
And I had reached out to Dr. Rice about how much would it cost to get Mason Borough back. It's $5,000 for them to come and answer our questions, because we talk about Mason Borough a lot.
That's not to do a reiteration, that's just to come
To
back and
answer
answer
questions. That's correct. To answer questions and for them to come. I think we could probably do it on a Zoom call for maybe half that price, in my opinion. But we talk about Mason Borough a whole lot. But it'd be nice to get them here. You know, and can I say just a few words? I hadn't said
Absolutely.
a whole lot. You know, we've heard there's a difference between a plan and an action. And to be honest, I voted to where we're at today. Looking at it, was it the best decision? I don't know. It's one of the hardest decisions I have had to make as, I guess, an adult almost. It feels like it. There's a difference between a plan and an action, and we're taking an action. I think I've heard from the consensus of seems like the Board of County Commissioners is we need a strategic plan. And if that's, Dr. Rice, if that plan means doing X, Y, Z, because last time I checked, we're about class size, class offerings, what's best for our children, right? About what opportunities they have. That's what we're about. You know, building don't educate a person, but being in a building that's fallen, like you had said at King Elementary. King Elementary is one of a few that's bad. There's others that's bad as well. I mean, I'll go through that in a minute. But if that's what the Board of Commissioners is asking is for a strategic plan, I don't disagree with you a bit. So I think we need to go back to the drawing board, because I did notice in all of our plans that we came up with, they had us applying for a grant, getting the grant, building the school. Applying for a grant, getting the grant, building the school. We're not guaranteed a grant on any of that. I don't know how many times Ms. Moore has whispered that in my ear when we've talked. We're not guaranteed a grant. And so I think if that's what I'm hearing tonight from everybody is maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and not just make an action and you say, well, that's a plan. No, we've got an action, and the reaction is we're going to do this, that, and the other to the schools that it's affecting. That's not, to y'all's point, a strategic plan. I wrote down a few things. You know, facility condition is one. You can go on the facility study and look at it, just like I did. The best that they can get's a 15 on a scale. It was plumbing, mechanical, and electrical. And Richie he's in them every day and can attest to a lot of this. I did the same thing that every citizen can go through and do simple math. And the most you can get is a 15 based on that's the best condition, or a 0 if it's bad. I'm just going to read them, because you can as well. London's a 2.5. Pinnacle's a 3.5. Sandy Ridge is a 5. King Elementary's a 5.5. Pine Hall's a 6. Walnut Cove's a 7. Germantown's 8.5. Lawsville's 8.5. Mount Olive's 19. And Nancy Reynolds and Poplar Springs are 15. I mean, half the schools, like you was talking about, is in not the best condition. So I guess my thing is, as it sounds like to me, as one board member on the Board of Education, before we can go further from the standpoint of maybe getting support from the Board of Commissioners, and again, y'all don't decide what schools to close. I understand that. But it's been said that we don't listen to the community. I can't speak for everybody, but everybody I've talked to, they don't like our plan. I mean, I don't talk to everybody. I'm sure there's people that's for it, there's people that's against it, and I know no matter what strategic plan we come up with, it's not going to please everybody. I'm a pastor. I understand not pleasing people, right? I mean, in politics, well, So I get that. I mean, you heard the roar in the crowd from one high school. From a business model, strictly business model, if you're looking at operating a business, that's the most cost-effective thing. Building you one high school, have the whole high schools to be middle schools. Me and Dwayne's talked about this. Have the elementary, and you do that and close a lot of the smaller elementaries. That's to be the most effective model. That's it. But I got to live in the county, right? And so there's emotion, there's that behind the scenes. So it's a balance of we're representing not just the ones in this room, but people watching. I mean, they elected us. I don't care about getting reelected. I told my wife I should listen to her and not get elected, not run. So as far as behind every smart man's even a smarter woman. That is true. So I could care less about. I got on the board to try to help students. That's why I got on the board, to try to make sure there wasn't a liberal agenda that was pushed down our kids' throat like what's happening all over America. I didn't get on this board of education to close schools or whatever. I want to make them better, whatever that looks like. And I'm not married to what we're doing at that time when we were going through it. Makes sense. And I told Vaughn early into this, when we talked about Pine Hall, if we're going to close one, we need to do it in all areas. Looking back, I don't think that's the right decision, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Because every area of the county is different. The north side's different than King. King's different than one at Cove. But at the end of the day, we're one Stokes County that we got to figure out how to make that work. We got a mountain in the middle of us. But the reason I take this so seriously, if you want to stay late at night and watch some YouTube, go on. We're not the first people that's ever consolidated schools. Go on YouTube and just type school consolidation. It has ripple effects in the community. They're not always good. And so that's a thing that we got to focus on, is that the decisions we make just don't affect the 100 or 200 kids in that school. It affects their families. It affects a lot of other things. So that's why I just sat here listening, but it sounds like what my takeaway is we need to come up with a plan that's best for our kids, whatever that price tag is, and then figure out from there if we're going to apply for a grant, if we're going to get funding from the county. So that's my takeaway, is that instead of action, reaction, then we've got 7 plans, but instead of having them apply for grants, that's when we come to you and say we need money for this elementary, we need money for this high school. That's what I took away from it. So I don't know, Ronnie, what you said y'all had the, what's it called, the study where you know how much money you can.
Yeah, we have financial consultants.
When is that? Do you know?
And they are hopeful. Start with, we gave them a deadline. We needed it by the next budget cycle.
Okay.
However, they have said, I think, Ms. Langford, have they not said that they could get it done earlier? Have you talked to Andrew or Doug, either one?
I have not talked to Andrew since.
Well, it's father-son group, Andrew and Doug Carter.
Yeah.
We've had them in the past, in the early 2000s, probably 5 to 10. We hired them, and we've rehired them.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll come up with a plan of how much money we should have to put into the schools. And
That's an important figure.
I can't tell you when. It's sort of like when y'all had y'all's planning.
Yeah.
They might have gave you a date, but they didn't get it done on time. They both might have been on time. I don't know. But I know our group, I'd say probably March.
Okay.
Would probably be the earliest.
I'm sure this would be like strategically to all your other departments.
Yes.
Where
As well.
the needs,
Yes.
you weigh out
So
the
we
needs versus.
include y'all in that pot.
Yep.
Gotcha.
What it boils down to is what we're willing to do. I mean, we got a 10% debt to tax ratio. We can borrow $300 million if we can justify it to the LGC.
Thank you.
Right now.
Yeah.
But, it's not an issue of
There's
how
your
much.
plan.
It's not an issue of how
We can
much
come in
we
under
can
budget.
borrow.
All right, motion to adjourn.
But
It's
that
not an
being
issue of how much we
question.
can. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Even the match, or of definitely 300 million equals an increase in taxes. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Even the 2 million?
Yes.
Am I understanding
Yes.
you correctly?
Yes.
Our current fund balance, I'd say that's a yes.
And if you
And
listen-
sometimes what I find difficult, and I'm in a more rural area of the county, is, telling certain communities or families or students that, I'm sorry, your school's going away, you've got to go somewhere else. This may be more difficult for you initially. Hopefully you'll make new friends and get better with it, whatever. But then, oh yes, by the way, you still won't have what are all the things we don't have? Pre-K, you won't have that option. You won't have an option if one of your children are born and need EC needs in the northern, part of the county. What else? The list goes on of the things that, are not available. If they're available, you have to go outside of the northern district to get it. All those things right there. So, you know what I mean? So continue to have less, and let's try to figure out where we need, most to repair the poor structures. And it sounds like it is an extremely, like Mr. Duncan read off and everybody's witnessed, a poor facility that needs great attention. That's just, I'm just telling you the struggle with me there. That's what, makes it so difficult. So, like all of you guys have said, this is a very complex issue. Solving this problem isn't easy. And I just worry without you guys knowing what you can do, and all of our needs being on the table, and looking further down the road with a long-range plan. Like I've mentioned, if you put kids into an older school, like we've proposed with this current plan, how long does that last? If you put 300 kids in an old school, you know what I mean, that had 175, and now you're taking on several more. How long can they? And, they may have been rated worse than the school you're considering replacing. Like, how long does that last? So what's the next phase to that plan? I think we are going to have to look further down the road. And another one of my big issues has been a plan with stability. Like Mr. Duncan mentioned, not all areas or districts are the same. Some closures affect it worse because the next school's not 4 miles, So just considering something that offers stability in each district, if we're truly trying to, keep the high schools in place that we have. So really, I hear what you guys are saying. It sounds like you want to support growth, change. We have to replace some old schools, but maybe just not with this current plan, and we have to look further down the road. And it sounds to me, are we willing to do that, right? Is that what I'm hearing? Are we going to look further than, okay, the board's kind of come to a consensus about 3 schools. Well, what's beyond that? What's the end goal? That's what I'm understanding from you, maybe, Mr. Chandler, is what's the longer next step in all this,
Yeah, we need to predict what it's going to cost us.
Yeah. Yeah, we
With
need
what
to
you
know-
guys are doing now.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, we need to know what your need is. We don't need to build, swimming pools and stuff like that. I'm talking about what your need is. Then you have an immediate need, and then I think also ties into it. One of the big things is, to me, an immediate need is when you've got schools in the state of, if we have more that are worse than King Elementary, I would hate to go through those schools. But to me, that's immediate need. And then as you phase into, what the next phase of, what else do you need for the school system, whether it's new school, or you could look to renovate a school. I just need to know what you want. So then we can find out, how we can accomplish this. We can't write a check in one day, obviously, or 1 year for everything, but we can get funding. And I know this is a terrible thing to say or a terrible thing to think, but yes, sometime in life costs go up. They do. We got to fund stuff. We're required to fund things. And I think as long as we show the public, no one likes paying more taxes. I get that. But we all like a service too. And I think along with public safety, I think the education is right there. We have to have quality education. So I don't want you to feel like that you have to not ask for something that you consider is a need, that it's like, that it's going to be just arbitrarily just disbanded, because it's not.
And then Mr. Mendenhall, pointed out a lot of our current debt. And this may be a question for you ladies, if you close a facility that you have current debt outstanding on, at what point are you writing a check right then, or how does that work?
The lender would have to agree to that, or would have to give us guidance on that.
Who is that?
The lender, whoever lenders
Okay. Gotcha.
would have to.
Yeah, I think our finance team, we've reached out to the bank that we have the loan through to ask that question, and they basically, their response was, if it's for an educational use, even if that's, I know it's been mentioned, maybe a district office or another school or whatever, we're fine with the loan payment, that the structure that we have. But if it changes to any other form of use, that school will have to take it back to the bank and basically get them to approve that change of use. And then at that point, they'll let us know whether we can keep our loan payment structure, or we'll have to pay it all in one lump sum. So it kind of depends on what the usage is.
Yeah, I'd asked that question earlier, and I had Amber and Lisa check into that, because some of the schools that were on the list, we owe on. And I'm not singling one school out, I'll just say Lawsonville has been mentioned, and we owe 900 and some thousand, 965,000 that we owe on Lawsonville Elementary School? 965?
880, yeah.
965,880, okay. So we would have to know if that school was closed. We'd have to, as our chairman said, and Amber and Lisa, we'd have to go to our lender, and if it's used for educational purposes, we're okay. But if it's used for anything else, we have to get their permission. Or we would have to make a one-time payment of $965,000.
Thank you. And I've also, I guess, kind of been like, I would say the odd man out, but the only woman on the board. But I also agree with what Mr. Duncan had mentioned as far as, yes, Masonboro is not perfect, and I've heard everybody's varied opinions on that tonight. But when you work doing that every day, I'm not opposed to telling them what we can tolerate, what we can't, and they need to reformulate a few things. But we want to see, the data attached to that. And the public piece, yes, it has definitely lacked as far as public buy-in or telling the public this has to happen, but this is the benefits we would see from it in different areas. So I really struggle with that. And then like the one public hearing, that's very disheartening. But I just encourage the school board to let's work on a longer range plan and fine tune some of the details for sure. And just go from there. I don't know if Mr. Bryant had anything. He's the only one that hadn't got to speak yet.
Yeah, I just, I've thought about it. We've done a lot of talking back and forth. Several of us have. And one thing I can't live with is making the North District any bigger. It's already 52% of the county and has less than 1,000 kids. I can't go to the county line at Forsyth County so that I can get 500 kids at North Stokes. I'm sorry, I can't. Not going to do it. I'll never vote for that. But that's what I see. When you start drawing maps and stuff, dividing up the schools to get them equal, on the eastern side of the county, you've got to go plumb to Forsyth County. You know, my daughter went to North Stokes, went to Piney Grove, and we live closer to Southeastern and South Stokes. Where I live at is 10 miles closer to south than it is north. But she went to north. Got a great education, great school. I'm sort of partial to it. But the thing is, I can't move it to where other kids could go 10 miles to south, but got to drive 25 to north. I can't do that. We've got to figure out the redistricting. This county's been redistricted enough when you got less than 1,000 kids and 52% of your county. That's a major problem with me. I mean, Masonboro drew the lines going down Volunteer Road right by Chestnut Grove. You live across the road, Chestnut Grove, throw a rock in that yard. You're supposed to go to North Stokes, Piney Grove. That's too far. I don't know the answers, but redistricting in that situation is definitely not it. We might could tweak it a little bit, but not much.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Meet with them and tweak it.
I mean, when I leave, I come through Lawsonville the other day, headed Pilot Mountain, went down Piney Grove Road up Lynchburg. Well, I hit the 0 on the speedometer at the post office at Lawsonville. And I got the Venable Road, which is the line for Pinnacle and Nancy Reynolds. It was 15 miles. I drove all the way across half of Lawsonville and all of Nancy Reynolds in 15 miles. And when I'm sitting there looking at what we've got to do, we've got to close some schools. We don't have a choice. And it's not that we don't want to do one study or the other study, but when Masonboro comes out here and they look at, oh, that school will hold 800 kids. Okay, yeah, the core capacity is 800 kids. Problem is we've got enough classrooms for 500, and they base their whole study off the core capacity of the schools instead of classroom capacity. That study is worthless. I'm sorry. But the numbers are so skewed, there's no way it could be viable.
It's the first iteration, Dwayne.
So, yeah, but how many more times? Like Vaughn said, they walked through every school. They met with every one of us. They even asked me, said, what can you live with? What can you not live with? I mean, each one of us met with them. I think they met with some of the commissioners. I don't know if they met with everybody or what, but didn't they meet with some of you guys too?
Meet with me.
No, they didn't make one.
Okay. I was told that they were going to, but they didn't. Okay.
Let me interject one thing. If you think consolidation or closing the schools bad, redistricting and redrawing the lines is just as bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's just as bad or worse than the other, because we had to move the line between south and west. And well, you were on there, weren't you, Mike? Were you on there when we did
Oh,
that?
no.
Well, it was just
I
as
got blamed for
bad.
enough. Don't blame me for that also.
Years ago, they moved the line from
status quo. Don't move anything. Don't do anything different.
But that doesn't help anything.
Well, the three
To
schools
redraw
we're
the
looking at
lines.
consolidating are all on the ORED, all on the Masonboro plan.
And on the
To be
ORED study
closed.
too.
So, I mean,
3-year closing. Say that again.
the three schools that are potentially to be closed are closed within phase 1 or phase 2 of ORED.
ORED or Masonboro?
Or Masonboro, rather.
Mike, would you call those out for me?
Pinnacle, Pine Hall, and King Elementary are both in phase 1, and phase 2 is Walnut Cove, Germantown, and London. And Lawsonville is right in there also because it comes with the new development plan for closing Lawsonville and everything to do the new East Stokes, Andy Ridge, but then it turns Lawsonville into a alternative school. So that we're going to they suggest, first iteration, have 2 alternative schools instead of the 1 we have now.
So, well, we got 6.
So even if if you follow ORED, if you follow the Masonboro, both of them close the same schools. So then it becomes, is our issue, it comes down to this, funding. Everybody that's contacted me is upset because the school in their district was going to be closed. I have not had the first call from anybody saying, oh, please close my school. I'm mad. So now it becomes, a funding issue in current expense. If we are going to be reduced funding because of your budget levels, then we simply have to close schools. Now, we have to decide what we're going to do to give these kids closure and time to mourn the closing of the schools. So at the next current expense, we requested 17 million and some change based on what we saw our expenses go up from the previous year to this year. We received 15. That's going to about empty our fund balance, so we're not going to have a fund balance. So if the same trend goes up, gas didn't come down that much this week. So if we're at 18 million, is that still a fundable model on your early budget projections? Yeah, crickets, because if we're going to consolidate to save money and produce a better education product, but we're wanting to wait, go to a second or third iteration of Masonboro if we chose to go down that rate. That's going to take time, so we're going to have to keep these schools open while we keep them.
Okay.
But we can't do it. We can't do it ever does funding.
Thank you.
That's fine. Do that. Keep them open until you
Keep
get it
them
figured
open.
out.
Until we get a plan.
We can't
Until we get a plan to move forward. Yes.
So
keep
you're
them
gonna
open
fund
until
it.
we get a plan to move forward and submit the budget to us. We'll keep the schools open.
So you're going to fund the extra $2 million that we asked for this year and again next year
Or just
and the year after?
See
It all depends how you justify it.
here, it's like I asked Dr. Rice when we had the meeting with the budget thing, and I appreciate him being honest. So we're looking at line items from the local funds that we're going to approve. And we all can sit here and agree, all 5 of us on the board can sit here and say, yes, this line item, that line item, and give the money to Dr. Rice, the school. And then as soon as it hits their bank account over there, he can move the money as he sees fit. We don't see any amendments that are coming over like it would be, because it's not a department of the county. So to me, it's kind of ridiculous to go by line items for the local part of the government to give him. What we have to look at is we got to trust him to do his job and the school board to oversee what he is spending the money on. So yeah, I'm for you tell us an amount that you want on the local fund, and then if it's agreeable with the 5 of us, I'll give you the full amount, and you just do what you want, because you're going to do it anyway, because you can. And I got to trust that you do the right thing with it. Now, if you're going to do a pet project and leave one of the schools not be funded and you don't want to pay for the utilities or whatever, then that's on you, not on me. That's my one thought.
I'll give that money based on a plan, not without a plan.
All right.
Anybody else need to speak?
I think we're about ready to wrap it up.
Adjourn your board first.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
I get a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Rodney, baby, before we ever get
Aye.
went into session, he was adjourned.
Got his car warm. Got your break with your logo. I can do it by my phone. I got my phone on.